Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our GL assessment webinar. My name is Rees, and I'm the assistant head at Jumeirah English Speaking School. Jumeirah English Speaking School is based in Dubai. It's a primary school, years F1 to 6, of around 800 children. We're actually part of, we have a sister school as well, which also has a similar size primary, and a secondary school which goes to year 13 and is an IB school. A bit of background to the school: it's a highly successful academic school. Children leave in year 13. I suppose the most academically successful head off to well-respected universities such as Oxford or Caltech, those sort of things. But what we want to focus on today is the ways in which we identify and support student well-being. And the school's perspective is the one I was just trying to describe. I'm going to start off with something that might shock you a little bit, make you feel old. It did me anyway. Back to the Future is 30 years old this year. That might have been spoiled for me a little bit by the information that's been out on social media recently. But yes, the year that they shot forward to was 2015 in the film, where they were driving hoverboards around and things like that. And then you might be thinking, why on earth is he mentioning this? And it's really because, in terms of the classroom setup and the way that we teach, we think to ourselves, how much has that changed over the last 30 years? I think one of the clearest ways in which it has changed is the introduction of technology. But outside of that, what are the ways in which it's changed? For me, looking at student well-being, that has changed massively over the last 30 years. But the main reason I bring the Back to the Future signpost up is the quote from Michael J. Fox, the star of that film. He said, there was this year, I think, he said, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. And then, like I was saying, if you go back 30 years ago and before that, the focus really wasn't on student well-being as much as the teacher was always right. The teacher was always at the front. The teacher told the children what they were going to learn, and then they had to do that. And the problem is with that is exactly like our friend here. I taught Stripe how to whistle. I don't hear him whistling. I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. And the thing is with this is that teaching and learning are sometimes two very different things. I know lots of schools have teaching and learning policies. Well, what we've really tried to do at our school is flip this around. We no longer have a teaching and learning policy. We have a learning and teaching policy. We try and base everything on what it is that the children are learning, the way they learn, looking at personalized pathways, and then we look at the ways that as teachers and as educators we can support this. We can facilitate their learning and how we can bring them on and move them forward. So keeping learning at the forefront of our mind, you have to ask yourself the question, what are the priorities of a school? What do people see as the main focuses of the schools that they work in? Now, you might see academic success as one of the top answers, one of the key things that people look for. And in my community, certainly in the school that I'm in, that's one of the main focuses. Or it could be on the most basic level, teaching children to read or write, or preparing children for the world of work, foster students' creativity, or even pass on knowledge between generations. And all of these are really worthwhile focuses. But what you don't usually see there as a top overarching focus is student well-being. So even though we're in an environment full of caring, passionate individuals, we quite often, I feel, fail to highlight it as part of a school development plan or part of your action plan or something that we're going to work on as a whole school to focus on student well-being. And I guess What I'm saying is this talk is called Identify and Supporting Student Wellbeing. But we really have to answer one question before we get onto that. Is identifying and supporting well-being important? My short answer to that is yes, absolutely. But that wouldn't make for a very long presentation here, so I'll expand on that a little further. So yes, it is important, but the main question is then why? Why is it important? Well, if you think about what the best attributes of the best learners are, I asked Twitter the other day what they thought the attributes of the best learners were, and these were some of the things that they said. People on Twitter said. They said risk-taking, enthusiastic, open-minded, determined, curious, leaders, innovative. And the thing is, if you look at all of these elements and all of these attributes that these learners have, they all take a great deal of confidence in some way, a great deal of self-confidence. And we've known for quite some time, it's no secret, as Maslow indicated a while ago, that self-esteem and to get to self-actualization and there are lots of things that need to be in place for you to get there. A student's self-esteem has significant impact on everything that they do, on the way that they engage in activities, on the way they deal with challenges, on the way they interact with others. Self-esteem can also have a marked effect on academic performance, and we'll come into that in a few minutes. If you have low self-esteem, then that can lessen a student's desire to learn. They can distract the focus, and definitely the willingness to take risks will be affected. You see, positive self-esteem, on the other hand, is one of those building blocks of school success. It makes sure that the student has a really sort of firm foundation for learning. The challenge with working with children with low self-esteem, I guess, is to restore their belief in themselves so they can persevere in the face of academic challenges. Because if we're going to get these learners that have all these wonderful attributes, then they need to have that confidence in themselves to be able to ask questions, to deal with those challenges. Now then, the other theories that fit in nicely with this are in line with Bloom's taxonomies of learning. And he described in one of his landmark papers with himself and his colleagues those three learning domains: the cognitive domain, the affective domain, and the psychomotor domain. For the sake of today, we're just going to focus mainly on the cognitive domain and the affective domain. The cognitive domain is the one that we all know so well. This involves all sorts of thinking. Without question, it's the most widely used of Bloom's taxonomies. It divides it into 6 levels of understanding. According to Bloom, the acquisition of facts marks only the beginning of understanding. Those facts then must be understood before they can be applied to new situations. Knowledge must be organized and patterns recognized before they're used to create new ideas, synthesis. And then finally, the ability to discriminate among competing models of evidence. The learner needs to be able to assess the information, on its relative merit and validity of information and ideas. Now, we as educators focus on this side of Bloom's taxonomy a lot. But what we probably don't focus on quite enough is the affective domain. And the affective domain is something that I think is important with what we are talking about today. The affective domain includes things like feelings, emotions, attitudes, values, and motivation. Levels within the affective domain range from initial awareness to a commitment to values that guide behavior and decisions. Um, the affective domain describes learning objectives that sort of emphasize a feeling or an emotion or a degree of acceptance or rejection. The characteristics vary simply from paying attention to more complex quantities of like character and like conscience. The affective domain involves many things that sort of at first seem unconnected, but it was another psychologist, Krathwold. I'm never sure how to say their name. They put them into a hierarchical order, like we can see on this diagram here. And what they've done is they've related it to an individual's level of commitment to learning. The key idea is this: receiving information is the first and the easiest part of learning. But more important is it's that you respond to what you learn, that you value it, that you organize it, and eventually it becomes a guide to your life. A key part of this process is developing good attitudes towards learning and towards what you learn. You see, motivation and values are incredibly important. And I think there was a recent study by Carol Dweck and others which were demonstrating that the students' view of learning, they can have huge effect on their grades. So the affective domain is essential for learning. But it really does receive little attention from us as educators. Instead, we quite often just focus on the cognitive outcomes. But we need to think about this. In some ways, perhaps the most important consideration of this affective domain occurs when you assess your own learning. You get that idea where you can consider and evaluate your motives and your attitudes and other things in a way that your teacher cannot do for you. When you can identify and deal with the effective roadblocks to learning that can't be recognized or solved when just using the cognitive approach purely. So, thinking about the types of learners that we want and thinking about their needs and how important self-esteem is to them, and then thinking about the cognitive abilities that we want from them, and then looking at how the feelings and thoughts and motivations are linked to the way that they succeed. That is why we focus on student well-being. So now the reason we are here is so that we can more deeply consider how. Well, in my school, we do it in a number of ways. First, the staff that work closely with children with additional educational needs, they are incredibly adept at identifying these children and supporting children. And what we have found is a link between self-esteem, regard as a learner, if you like, and being on the additional educational needs register. So those staff have a very sharp with the way that they identify students. In addition to that, we have class teachers and their professional practice. This is really where the crux happens, isn't it? This is where the class teachers can identify the well-being of a student faster than anybody else. They're the people who know the children in each of those classrooms. They're the ones that will notice the difference in a child, the change in behavior, because they're the ones who know those children inside out. But we can improve on that, and we'll go into that in a little bit. Also, in the school, we use pupil voice. So we do canvass pupils' opinions. We do try and ask them as often as possible. And we use PASS. Now, when I think about it, the Oasis department, which is our department which looks after children with additional educational needs, they really, I suppose, we are really focusing on the cognitive domain. One of the main reasons why they go to those staff members is because they might be behind academically. So that really is a focus on the cognitive domain. With our teacher practice, even though I work with outstanding teachers, it's hard to always identify, especially the quieter members of the class, and to pick up on what their feelings and thoughts about towards themselves and towards school are. It's often the most outspoken children who can really hold your focus, and you have a very clear understanding of their attitude towards themselves in the school. Our pupil voice and canvassing for opinions from pupils is limited, if you like, by the teacher influence, I call it. The fact that if you sit a child in a room and ask them questions, quite often they will give you answers to the questions they think you want. And it's quite difficult for them to be honest in that high pressure situation. They just sort of say what you want them to. And so this is where PASS comes in. And we've been using PASS now. We're into our second year. But what PASS does is it asks the children questions, feelings about themselves, and feelings about school. And it's split up into these 9 areas. Feelings about school, perceived learning capabilities, self-regard, preparedness for learning, attitudes to teachers, general work ethic, confidence in learning, attitudes to attendance, and response to curriculum demands. And you can really see these are things that are focusing in the affective domain. They're the things that we're looking at, the needs of our students and talking about supporting their well-being. So these are some of the results from my school. And the first thing that you get is this. This is called like the level 1 whole cohort profile. So this is the whole of our key stage 2 and the responses. This for me is a health check of the whole school. You can see that in terms of positive feelings towards the school, we're at almost 94, 95%. And these seem very high. When you compare the percentiles, as you're able to do with the report, it gives you an idea of how you fit compared to other schools. But as a general health check, you can see that the school is performing very well. It also, because we've done this for the second year now, it also gives us a way of looking at year-on-year data. And what we've actually seen is that we've increased in nearly every area since last year. And it's an indication that some of the things that we've put in place are starting to have a positive effect. Now, this whole cohort profile report here can be used in a number of ways. It's good for reporting. It's good information to pass on to your governors, to pass on to the rest of the staff, to pass on to inspectors who want to know how children feel about the school. And it's also good to feed back to the children, to say the areas that they are most confident in, they feel most positive towards, something to share perhaps in assembly time. It also allows you to make quick connections and to see the areas, if you like, that the children feel the least positive about. And you can see, for us, that we need to look at the self-regard as a learner. And also, I think that sort of 3 and 7 are connected. So self-regard as a learner and confidence in learning. And they're both below 80, as is responses to the curriculum demands. Now, I see a connection in those areas. That third area, self-regard as a learner, focuses on self-worth, and specifically on achievement. And what you find in a school like ours, where you have high achieving children, that children if you make sets, and children in third sets and fourth sets, even though they are achieving at much higher levels, they feel the pressure that they're not achieving as high as the academic best in their year groups, if you like. So self-regard as a learner is a difficult one to focus on, and in schools where lots of children are achieving academically. Number 7 is also linked, because that area, their confidence in learning, is talking about the perseverance when they're faced with a challenge. So if your self-regard, your self-worth in terms of academic are low, then yes, of course, you're not going to have that perseverance when you're faced with a challenge. And if you see the other factor that's below 90 for us is area 9 there, which is response to the curriculum demand. And that's a motivational factor. And that really looks at like the school-based motivation. How motivated are the children to undertake and even complete motivational tasks. And when you think about the affective domain, you can really see that all of those are connected. So all of that information we've had as a senior management team that we can sit around and discuss. And we started thinking to ourselves, is it about time to be considering this information into our school development plan? So this is the first overall graph you get from Sit and Pass. We did include it in our school development plan. One of our focuses for the year has become challenge for all. And it's really taken from making sure that we're challenging individuals at the right level for them, that we're making them realize that they are being challenged, and that we call it challenge so that everybody's sort of got an aspirational target. And again, it's really important when we think about the affective domain. Below that, level 2 reporting. PASS then starts to focus on groups. You can see that it compares boys and girls, and for us, we don't seem to have, in terms of attitudinal factors, too much of a contrast. At least not enough of a contrast for us to be focusing on. You can see across the board, generally, the girls are feeling a little bit more positive than the boys in certain areas. But yeah, it's very, very level. Then this will drill down a little bit further in your level 2, because we're still looking at groups, and you might be able to look at the year groups and looking at their percentage answers overall to the questions and seeing their self-regard, etc. Because we've been doing this now year on year, this is not really a main focus of us to look at the year groups, but it is fantastic information to be passing on to year group leaders. But you can see, if you look at the purple here, which is the year 6, and I compare it with our year on year, you can see that especially at the end of Key Stage 2, so the first graph was last year's and the second graph now is this year's, you can see that the end of Key Stage 2 attitudes have improved. And then we think that's a result of an increased pupil leadership program. The pupil leadership encourages children to take part in different organizations in the school: charity committee, green team, playground monitors, kit managers, those digital tech leaders, those sort of things. And with that social responsibility, that really has helped them. Now, what we've done with that is we've brought the leadership lower down into the school, say perhaps into year 3. So Snack Shack business enterprise was taken on by year 3 students, and that allowed the year 6 to become the consultants. Now, that element of consulting in a business enterprise project and really taking charge of it and leading it, the self-worth and the self-value that they're gaining from that, and their belief in themselves, is we think has led to an increase in our positive responses from our year 6, from the end of Key Stage 2 students. Now then, if you're looking at groups, and you can do it with this, you can drill down further. So you can, as we have just had a quick look with boys and with girls, you can also look at your SEN children or ethnic groups, free school meal children, or children with EAL. And one of the beauties of this is you can also With PASS, you can enter your own custom data. We still haven't fully decided on what our custom data is. We have experimented with things like whether we looked at children who are new to the school or nationality of children in the school. Those weren't particularly useful. It was nice to see that they were sort of in line with other groups in the school, but there wasn't any revealing data. Now then, this for us has been where the key success has been. This is a class that gives you the individual answers. So down the left hand side, I've taken off just one column to the left of feelings about school there, which would have the children's names in. And so with each child's name, pupil 1, pupil 2, pupil 3, across the side, horizontally, they are the answers of those children, the positive responses. So it gives you the individual profiles of the children. Now then, for me, whether you want this in the original report with all the other cohort data analysis as PDFs or as an Excel sheet, then this is really important. The PDF, for me, kind of looks pretty, but it's more about what you can do with the Excel sheet that interests me. So now what I have in front of me is the whole school with the pupils' pupils' names would be down here, but then these are the responses. Now in Excel, if you highlight across, and I apologize because I'm using a Mac here rather than a Word document. If you highlight the row that has the areas that are focusing, and then you click on data and you add filters, what you can do with this Excel sheet is you can bring this data alive and really use it to impact. Now you've added your filters on, you can put it in ascending or descending. We generally switch this to ascending straight away, and you can imagine with the names that would be here, we've really got some focus groups. These are the feelings about the school, and we've identified really rapidly the individuals throughout the school who have low feelings towards them school in terms of perceived learning capability. If I do the same, I just highlight it. You will have in your schools the names of those children whose perceived learning capabilities are so low, or the self-regard. Now then, if you keep it in that PDF format, it's very difficult to pick this up. However, so what we've started doing is we use the Excel sheet and we order these, and so we can really identify children straight away. So if you're like me, I do like my data, but there is always the one question that you ask yourself when you have something powerful like this. If you're able to find out who the children are in your school that do not feel prepared for learning, then so what? Because what we're saying here, this is the identification phase, but as we know that we're looking at identifying and also supporting well-being. So what? Now we've identified them, how can we support them? Well, first of all, we consider, in our school, we consider perceived learning capabilities, self-regard and confidence in self-learning to be connected. And we've talked a lot about this already, but what we do with these children, if they are identified in these groups as being quite negative in their own thoughts and in their own feelings towards themselves and towards school, we hold learning conversations with these children, or we sometimes get the parents involved and discuss strategies with them. We ensure they are the children who are on our pupil voice sessions, that they are the people, we involve them in what we're canvassing, and we try and get ideas from them as to making their school experiences better. They're also children that we would be mentoring and coaching. The next area that we might focus on then is the feelings about school. Now, this area really looks at how the school connected us. You know, how are the children feeling about belonging, which was a part of Maslow's hierarchy as we looked earlier on. Are they feeling distance or alienated from their community? And we'll be looking at those children because GL found a high correlation between um, social exclusion, negative feelings about school, and even possibly bullying. So we would be looking at those in an incident that happened in school recently. Just as an anecdote, was that a parent came in and mentioned that they thought their child might be bullying, and the first thing for me to do is to think, right, well, they've just had the pass. I wonder whether their feelings about school were particularly low at that time, and you can go away and look. Now then, if children do have low feelings about school, what can you do for them? We often buddy them up with people inside the year group who have strong feelings about school, buddy them up higher or lower year groups. We look at giving them responsibility in school with those pupil leadership clubs that we were talking about earlier on. Would it benefit them from being a tech leader or on the green team or a house captain or something like that? Give them something that will give them a sense of belonging to the school. We look at their clubs. Are they involved in any clubs? Would it benefit them from being involved in any clubs? Things like that. We would monitor their interactions with others. Are they being isolated by their peers? Are they being included in things? We would look at their groupings in class. Are there different ways that we can set groups up to make sure that they're not perhaps being dominated by some of the stronger characters, or they're perhaps not in a group where they're clashing heads with another individual or something like that. And we've also even suggested to parents that they organise play dates with other members of the class to get them more included, and that's been a strategy that's been pretty effective. After that, we look at preparedness for learning. Now then, this really sort of looks for attentiveness and concentration, that sort of thing. We found that this one had a close link with our children with additional needs register. And they really didn't feel that they were ready to learn, if you like. So what we've looked at with them is learning to learn skills, making sure that they have the skills, they feel like they have the skills they can draw on in order for them to learn and in order for them to access the curriculum. And we sort of reinforce those skills to allow children to develop strategies to learn. And those are all things like managing time, note-taking, risk-taking, organising, and the learning skills in order to access the curriculum. Hopefully that will make the children feel more prepared and ready to learn. And we've had, they are the main areas that we focus on. The other one that we do look at as well is attitude to teachers. And initially that attitudes to teachers one kept us in the first instance from revealing everything to the teachers. We didn't want the teachers to be upset by what the children thought of them. And over time we've come to realise how ridiculous that actually was. As soon as a class list is produced, that's given straight to the teachers, because they are the ones who can really, really, really positively affect the way the children are thinking with this. Look, in summary, we've had success from this. We have looked year on year at our data, and we've had a number of children who we'd identified in those lists. They've moved off the list now, and that's created such a positive reaction. Children who didn't feel prepared for learning now do feel prepared for learning. Children who had low self-regard now have a lot higher self-regard, and things like that really, really mean a lot. So, in summary, Why should we do it? Because we want to create learners that are all of these things. They are enthusiastic, curious, that they are leaders. We should do it because if we identify and support student well-being, we can affect them in the affective domain. We can turn their attitudes from low commitment to high commitment, high motivation, and seeing value in what they're doing. When you do that, you can have an overall health check of what's going on in your school. It will give you excellent opportunities to report to different areas and to identify things that can become part of your school development and school focus planning. The real benefit of it is getting into the individual profiles, identifying children that have low preparedness for learning, self-regard learning, perceived learning capabilities, and positively affecting them and changing their educational journey. So that's it from me. I'll be around now for a few minutes to do a question and answer, but thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you.